I met a man who seemed like everything I had ever wanted. Charismatic, kind, attentive, handsome, he knew exactly what to say, how to make me feel special. From the very beginning, it felt like something out of a movie. We clicked immediately. We were inseparable, the kind of couple that people looked at and said, they're perfect for each other. It all moved fast. 3 months in, he proposed. A beautiful setup, candlelit dinner, soft music, the perfect speech about how he had never felt this way before. I was so overwhelmed with love and excitement that I barely had time to process how quickly everything was happening. 3 months after that, we were married. The wedding was magical. My family adored him. His family welcomed me with open arms, and every single detail of that day felt perfect. The honeymoon was just as dreamy. 5-star hotels, stunning beaches, endless nights talking about our future together. I was convinced I had found my person, the man who would love me forever. Then, the morning after our wedding, something changed. I remember waking up with tears in my eyes, though I didn't understand why. I had been a virgin before marriage, and I thought maybe it was just the emotional weight of that, losing something that had always been a part of me. But there was something else, a heaviness in my chest. I looked over at my husband, expecting the same warmth and love I had always seen in his eyes. But he seemed off. His touch wasn't as gentle, his smile felt forced, and there was a coldness to him that hadn't been there before. I asked him what was wrong. Nothing, he said, but he was lying. I could feel it. I brushed it off, telling myself I was overthinking. Maybe he was just tired. Maybe I was imagining it. But over the next few months, the difference in him became harder to ignore. We lived with his parents for a while before finally securing our own home. At first, I thought things were settling down. He was sweet, attentive, always talking about the life we were building. But then, out of nowhere, he started smoking weed every single day. I knew he had smoked in his teen years, but he told me he had quit, that it wasn't something he needed anymore. That was a lie. What started as an occasional thing turned into a daily ritual. He'd wake up, roll a joint, and zone out for hours. At first, I convinced myself it wasn't a big deal. He still went to work. He still helped around the house. But soon, it started creeping into every aspect of his life, our life. Then it got worse. He wasn't just smoking weed. He started experimenting with other drugs. At first, he framed it as experiences we could share together. Something fun. Something I should be open-minded about. I had never touched drugs before, but I trusted him. I wanted to understand his world, to be the cool, supportive wife. So I let myself be pulled into it. Not heavily, but enough to look back now and wonder, why did I ever think this was okay? But the drugs weren't the real problem. It was what came with them. The lies, the mood swings, the way he would disappear for hours, sometimes an entire night, with no explanation. The times I would find him staring at his phone, quickly locking the screen when I walked by. The moments when I knew something was off, but he gaslighted me into thinking I was imagining things. The little signs started piling up. Scratches on his back that he couldn't explain. Mysterious marks on our bed and walls. A sudden change in how he dressed, how he groomed himself. He would leave the house for errands and come back smelling like women's perfume. I started questioning him. Every time, he had an excuse, a deflection, a reason for everything. One night, I noticed a bank charge for something unusual. When I asked him about it, he said it was for a game. I didn't believe him. I pushed until he finally admitted he had paid for a live video chat with another woman. I was just curious, he said, brushing it off like it was nothing. I told him flat out, that was borderline cheating to me. that if he ever crossed that line, I was done. He swore he never would. A month later, I found a lipstick stain on a glass in our dishwasher. I knew I didn't own that shade. My stomach twisted as I looked around the kitchen. The house had felt off for a while now, like it was holding secrets. I went outside and checked his car. Underneath the spare tire, I found a pantyhose sock. Under his driver's seat, a small, half-empty box of condoms. I felt like I was going to throw up. When I confronted him, his face barely changed. "The lipstick was probably yours," he said. I shook my head. "I don't wear that color." "The sock? It could be my mom's. She owned this car before I did. We cleaned out this car together." I shot back. "That wasn't there before." He sighed, rolling his eyes. "Fine. The condoms were for us. I was planning a little adventure, something fun in the woods." I wanted to believe him, but something in my gut screamed that I was being lied to. Still, I convinced myself I was overreacting, that I was being paranoid. Then, a few months later, everything exploded. One night, I went out for the day, and he told me he was going to spend time with friends. He never did that, so I encouraged him. I wanted him to have fun, to be social. He came home at 1 a.m., high out of his mind, crying. "I did something bad," he said, shaking. "I went to a massage parlor. A girl was grinding on me, but I stopped. I swear I didn't go all the way." I stared at him, my hands trembling. "Why are you telling me this?" "I think I have herpes," he choked out, pulling at his clothes. "I keep seeing bumps." I looked. There was nothing there. I packed my things and left. The next day, he called me in a panic. He swore he had hallucinated the whole thing, that he hadn't actually done anything, that he was just paranoid from the drugs. He even showed me a $100 bill, saying it was all he had on him that night, proof that he couldn't have slept with anyone. I should have left for good, but I came back. After I moved back in, things felt normal for a while. Not perfect, but quiet. He was still smoking, still drifting through life in that detached way of his, but there were no more big confessions, no more late-night breakdowns. I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, things would get better. Then, little things started to pile up again. I noticed his location would randomly be turned off. At first, he blamed it on his phone dying. Then he said he just didn't believe in tracking each other in a marriage. I wasn't asking to track him. I just wanted proof that he wasn't lying about where he was. Then, there were the missing condoms. I kept count this time. For disappeared from our nightstand. He acted surprised when I confronted him. "Maybe you used them and forgot?" I didn't forget. One night, he told me he was going to bed early. I stayed up, watching a show in the living room. An hour later, I heard the soft creak of the front door. I waited 5 minutes before checking our bedroom. Empty. I checked the bathroom. The kitchen. Nothing. His car was gone. I texted him. No response. I called. Straight to voicemail. He didn't come back until almost 4 a.m. I was still awake, sitting on the couch. The second he stepped inside, he tensed. He hadn't expected me to be waiting. I stood up. "Where were you?" His face twitched. I couldn't sleep, so I went for a drive." "For 5 hours?" He rubbed his jaw, avoiding my eyes. I lost track of time. I stepped closer. There was a smell on him. Not just weed, not just alcohol. A faint, unfamiliar perfume. "You smell like someone else," I said flatly. His whole body went rigid. "That's crazy." I stared at him, waiting. Then he scoffed. "You know what? I don't have to deal with this shit. You're obsessed with finding something wrong with me. He stormed past me, straight to the bathroom. I heard the shower turn on. I checked the car. The passenger seat was adjusted, moved forward. Someone shorter than him had been sitting there. The smell of perfume was stronger inside. I opened the glove compartment, searching for anything, receipts, an earring, something. Instead, I found his phone. He had left it in the car, screen still glowing from a notification. A message. I had a great time tonight. Can't stop thinking about you. I took a picture of the screen with my phone. Then I put everything back exactly as I found it and went inside. When he came out of the shower, I was already in bed, pretending to be asleep. I needed time to figure out exactly how I was going to destroy him. I didn't need proof anymore. I already knew. The smell of perfume on his clothes. The missing condoms. The fact that he had snuck out in the middle of the night and came home at 4 a.m., acting like I was the crazy one for questioning it. I had spent too long looking for hard evidence, too long letting him gaslight me into thinking I was paranoid. But this time, I wasn't playing that game. I waited until morning. He was acting normal again, humming to himself as he made coffee like he hadn't just come back from fucking someone else. I sat across from him at the table, watching. He finally noticed. What? I tilted my head. What did you do last night? He didn't even hesitate. I told you. I went for a drive. Right. I took a slow sip of my tea. What's her name? He blinked. What? The girl. I set my cup down. What's her name? His jaw tightened. You're being ridiculous. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table. You really think I don't know? His nostrils flared, but he forced out a laugh. Know what? Jesus, you've lost it. I smiled. Then unlock your phone. His face dropped. I didn't even need him to hand it over. That half second of pure, undeniable panic told me everything I needed to know. He scoffed, shaking his head. I don't have to prove anything to you. I shrugged. Didn't think so. I stood up and grabbed my purse. His eyes followed me, something uncertain flickering in them now. Where are you going? I didn't answer. I just walked out the door. I didn't go far. Just down the street to the gas station, just long enough for him to think I was actually leaving. When I came back, the house was quiet. His car was still in the driveway, and the bedroom door was locked. I didn't knock. I just stood there listening. The soft rustling of fabric, the distinct sound of drawers opening and closing. He was hiding something. I walked back to the kitchen and waited. 10 minutes later, he came out, pretending like nothing had happened. I smiled at him. Then, when he went to take a shower, I walked straight into the bedroom. He had forgotten one thing. He never locked the bedroom door unless he had something to hide. And I was going to find exactly what it was. I didn't waste time. The second the shower turned on, I started searching. His nightstand was empty, too empty. Normally, it was cluttered with random junk, receipts, and loose change. Now, it was spotless. I checked under the bed. Nothing. I opened his dresser drawers. Everything looked normal, but then I noticed his sock drawer was too neat. The pairs were stacked perfectly, like he had just rearranged them. I dug my hand to the bottom and felt something. A small black pouch. I pulled it out and unzipped it. My stomach turned. Inside were condoms. Not the kind we used. A different brand. A folded receipt from a pharmacy. A purchase made 3 days ago. A crumpled up napkin with a phone number written in red ink. I swallowed, my hand shaking. I wasn't stupid. I knew exactly what this was. But standing there, holding undeniable proof in my hands, I still felt a part of me break. The shower was still running. I had minutes, maybe seconds. I shoved everything back exactly how I found it and walked out of the bedroom like nothing happened. I sat in the kitchen, staring at the table, my mind racing. A few minutes later, he walked out, towel around his waist, rubbing his hair dry like it was just another morning. He barely looked at me as he grabbed a protein shake from the fridge. "You good?" I forced a smile. "Yeah." I watched him take a sip, calm, relaxed. No idea that I had just found his little stash of evidence. No idea that I was done playing his game. I stood up and grabbed my keys. "I'm going out." He didn't even ask where. That was his mistake, because I wasn't just going anywhere. I was going to find out who he had been fucking. I didn't go home. I needed to see it for myself. Not just a receipt, not a vague description from a cashier. I needed to catch him in the act. Instead of driving around aimlessly, I went somewhere I knew he wouldn't expect me, his gym. He went every evening, supposedly to clear his head. But I had started to wonder if that was really what he was doing. I walked in like I belonged there, past the front desk, through the rows of treadmills and weight machines, scanning the room. Then I spotted him. He wasn't alone. A blonde woman, early 20s, fit too comfortable around him. She leaned in close, laughing at something he said, touching his arm like she had done it 100 times before. I walked up behind them. Neither of them noticed me. Not until I said, "You're working out real hard, huh?" He turned so fast he nearly knocked over his water bottle. His face drained of color. "W, what are you doing here?" I ignored him and looked at her. "You must be the personal trainer." She shifted uncomfortably. No, Then who are you?" I asked, tilting my head. My husband shot her a look. "Don't say anything." That was all I needed. I smiled. "Got it." Then I turned and walked away. He followed me. "Babe, wait!" I spun around, stopping him dead in his tracks. "Don't. Just don't." I didn't yell. Didn't cause a scene. I just let my voice cut through him like a blade. His jaw clenched. He knew this wasn't just another argument. He knew I was done. I walked out of the gym, feeling his footsteps behind me. He was following me, but he wasn't running after me. He wasn't desperate yet. He thought he could still talk his way out of this. I reached my car and yanked the door open, but before I could get inside, his hand grabbed my arm, not hard, but firm. "Can we talk?" I looked at him, really looked at him. The man I married, the man I trusted, the man who had spent the last 2 years lying straight to my face, gaslighting me, making me feel crazy for questioning him. And now he wanted to talk? I yanked my arm free. "Talk to her." I got in the car and slammed the door. He stood there, running a hand through his hair like he was trying to figure out his next move. I didn't wait to find out. I drove straight home. The second I stepped inside, I grabbed a suitcase from the closet. If there was anything left of my old self, the girl who let him talk his way out of every red flag, who forgave him over and over because I wanted to believe in him, she was gone now. I threw in clothes, shoes, whatever I could fit. Halfway through, I stopped. I was shaking. Not from sadness. Not from fear. From rage. Because how dare he? How dared he let me love him while he was running around behind my back? How dared he look at me like I was the one overreacting? A door slammed. He was home. I didn't stop packing. He walked in, breathing hard. "You're seriously doing this?" I zipped up the suitcase and turned to face him. "You think I won't?" His eyes flickered, just for a second. A crack in his confidence. I had never left before. He thought I never would. He was wrong. He sat down on the bed like he was exhausted. Nothing happened. I laughed. Oh, so she just tripped and fell into your arms? She's just a friend. My hands clenched into fists. Then why did you look like you saw a fucking ghost when I showed up? He sighed, rubbing his face. I don't know. Yeah, that's what I thought. I yanked my suitcase off the bed, but before I could take a step, he spoke again. You're really gonna throw away everything over this? I stopped. I turned back slowly. Throw away, I repeated, my voice dangerously low. You threw this away the second you decided I wasn't enough for you. He stood up, stepping closer. I never cheated. You planned to. Silence. That was it. That was all I needed to say. I rolled my suitcase to the door, grabbed my keys, and turned to him one last time. You wanted to see what else was out there? I said, voice cold. Congratulations. Now you get to find out. And then I walked out. I didn't look back. I didn't cry. I just left. And I never spoke to him again.